Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.
Haroon Mirza transforms galleries around the world with immersive installations, kinetic sculptures and strange sounds.
I feel that Haroon works as really as a composer. You know, he's pulling in these different elements, whether they're kind of sound references or visual references or, you know, physical materials, and then he puts them all together.
Haroon is really a great artist, I would say, because his work is combining a lot of questions.
His art entangles immense themes of science, music, culture and ideology. From experiences with Brazilian shamans to conflict in Pakistan, Haroon draws from wide-ranging influences.
Within the art world, his practice has been accepted very quickly because it's been seen as important right from the beginning, because it did something that a lot of people kind of hadn't seen before or hadn't felt before.
Playing is a massive part of, and I think all artists' work. I think artists that play, you know, and have fun, it comes through, and I think it's somehow a more natural and more human outcome.
In Saint-Nazaire, France, Haroon is getting ready to launch his biggest and most ambitious installation to date, entitled Aquarius.
The scale of this exhibition is very important, is monumental. So for every artist, it's a challenge. How do you deal with this scale? How do you deal with this monster?
The exhibition space, Le Life, is one of the largest in Europe.
So that in itself presented a very interesting challenge for Haroon to take on. How is he going to fill the space, to expand a space that doesn't have walls, that isn't a traditional white cube? It in itself is a big challenge for an artist to take on.
We're in Saint-Nazaire in Life, which is an ex-military bunker, and we're on the last 2 days of installation. The show opens in 2 days. And yeah, we're just doing the sort of, well, actually there's loads to do. This is the chamber, and yeah, so below our feet there's going to be water, which they're going to fill up with the fireman's hose pipe. There's kind of 2 elements, really, but there's 3 spaces. So 2 of the spaces are pavilion, so this is like a pavilion, or a chamber, let's say. And then this space, which is the more ambient space, is the space for video. As you can hear, there's quite a lot of reverberation because of the size and scale of the space.
The exploration of sound and acoustics is a core element of Haroon's practice. Early works were assemblages of found objects interacting to produce sounds.
One of the very earliest sort of interactions that he came across and then used in his work was this collaboration or kind of clashing between an energy-saving light bulb and the sound the interference of sound that's created on a radio when you put the 2 things together.
Haroon's biggest solo exhibition was at the Tangley Museum, Switzerland, collaborating with a team of artists from different disciplines under his studio name, HRM 199 Limited. Collaborations included reworking pieces from other artists, including a parabolic mirror by Anish Kapoor.
So my interest is different levels of experience that can be created with sound. And the interest sort of lies in perception and how perception works. The more you play around with that, the more you become aware of it, I think, if you're thinking about it. But maybe not, you know. So if you're not thinking about it, then it's just about a feeling and an emotion, you know. So there's a reaction. It has some impact on you, whether you're aware of it or not.
In another collaboration, Haroon painstakingly programmed the colours from drawings by artist Channa Horwitz, transforming them from ink to light.
In Chamber of Horowitz, he actually used these very complex, complicated drawings by Channa Horowitz and then translate that into coloured lights. So you go in and you physically experience the drawings.
His studio, HRM 199, is a vehicle that he's been using pretty much right from the beginning to acknowledge the collaborators that he works with.
An exhibition by any artist involves teams to design and install. Haroon's acknowledgement of these people as collaborators, such as exhibition designer Francesca Fornazzari, is an attempt to expose that reality.
It's pretty rare to have an artist that wants to share a collaboration and, in a way, his poetic view of art. For this reason, I feel it's a privilege to work with Haroon, because he's very honest.
So it's kind of like trying to just demystify this idea that there's this artist that does all this stuff, and, you know, and that artist turns up, does it, and then disappears, and there's all these beautiful things. You know, it's not that.
And in a lot of his pieces, whether it's collaborating or using ready-made materials or collaborating with other artists' work, it's often a collaboration that's kind of not conventional. Some of Haroon's recent collaborations have involved actual live performance. So he's been working for a number of years with Wayne McGregor and his dance company, a series of lights that were being powered by the solar panel and sounds, and the dancers would move in front of the assemblage, and that would affect the audio response that you hear in the gallery.
I think one of the things that's very strong about Haroon's work is that it creates these complex instruments, these complex systems.
I don't know if they're both the same. That's the issue.
After the break, Haroon puts finishing touches on Aquarius. And we delve into the private past that informs his work.
Let's just leave it then. Okay, cool. Well, it's here. I'm going to go with Francesca's.
London-based sculptor Haroon Mirza is in Saint-Nazaire, France, for the largest installation of his career.
I don't think it's not going to work, so...
It's the day before launch, and Haroon is working with his collaborator Francesca Fornazzari, adding finishing touches to a water sculpture.
You kind of get a sense of it. To discover it is more interesting than it's... When you look at something straight, you see kind of one thing, but then you look around and you see other things. I think it's more interesting. I was always fascinated by taking things apart. I used to take toys and things apart and try and put them back together again in different ways. So, like, we can lift this up. Yeah? Like that, you see. I went to school and didn't really do very well. My mum died when I was 11, so as soon as I started sort of proper school, I kind of withdrew quite, slowly until the age of like 16, 17. Now it's slowing down. And then for 10 seconds it'll just be static, see, the blue one. I always kind of knew that I wanted to study, but I hated school. I liked the process of learning, but I think it was just not the sort of right environment. I was really dyslexic and I didn't know about it until, actually, I think I was on my master's. And that was quite an emotional moment because, there was a reason why perhaps I wasn't engaging as much.
After studying his Masters in Fine Art at Chelsea College, Haroon travelled to Pakistan in 2008 for an artist residency. Street scenes filmed as part of his research formed the building blocks of two pieces that would mark a turning point in the artist's career.
I was born in London in a Muslim family, first generation British Muslim. My mum was from Pakistan. There's a video of a street chef that's preparing this dish called takatak, and he minces it into tiny little pieces on this sort of huge hot plate. It was kind of like a performance. It was amazing. And as he minces, he creates this sort of really sort of rhythmic sound.
Haroon is passionate about music and has DJ'd since his 20s. This rhythmic sound became the inspiration for his breakthrough piece, Takatak.
So I was really amazed by it and filmed it, and then made all kinds of other things around it compositionally.
The other components of the work then are Sufi musicians, which sits on a turntable and rotates. And the reference to that is of the whirling dervishes and the idea that they use kind of music and dance to go into this different state and become closer to God. Then there's a Quran box, which he's used and integrated these LED lights, which were bought in the market.
Haroon's long-term love of music and beat mixing hasn't always been a simple pleasure. Certain schools of Islam reject music as sinful, while others celebrate it. In Takatak, Haroon explored these different conflicting attitudes.
And there was references to Sufism and Islam and ideas around music in Islam and the contradictory sort of ideas around music.
In one way, it points to beat mixing and Haroon's background in house music and techno as a DJ. There are these other routes into different histories. It takes us into his personal history.
It's a strange work because there's a lot in that work that you don't really see. While I was filming this, Bhutto was assassinated. At that moment, during the filming, we had to cut it because there was riots in the street because she just got assassinated and the whole country sort of flipped out and went into a state of emergency and we just had to run.
Someone's just been shot. What? Come on.
One night, walking around, I was going to go to this Italian restaurant, but thought I'd get some dodgy DVDs first. Went to the dodgy DVD place and the Italian restaurant blew up. So this is 100 feet away from me. And I haven't been back to Pakistan since. And I'd like to go. I'd like to take my children there. A guy and my wife, she's never been.
Thank you.
Well, I guess all artists explore perspective because it's always from their perspective and their history and their upbringing and everything, their experience up until that point of making that artwork. So all of that experience, I won't call it baggage because it's just experience, goes into that. And I think that's an important thing and that's a relevant thing for every artist. Then that extends into everything, every facet of life. You are a product of your experience.
After returning from Pakistan, Haroon's Takatak was purchased by the British Council and he won the Northern Art Prize. This becomes a turning point in the artist's career, going on to win prestigious art prizes around the world, including the Silver Lion at the Venice Biennale.
There's been a definite development. His initial works were more sculptural in an assemblage kind of form. Formally, the works have shifted to be bigger, more ambitious, more collaborative, more architectural in their installation.
Leading up to Haroon's exhibition in France, he developed works in Sao Paulo and New York, forming a trilogy of works entitled Emerging Paradigm. Each uses a media player designed by Haroon.
The Emerging Paradigm player controls up to 4 channels of video material and then up to 24 channels of sound.
One of the intriguing aspects of his work is that everything seems to connect up to everything else. So it then becomes a greatly extended instrument, you know, that extends to all of these different galleries in the world. And
After the break, it's launch day for Haroon's Aquarius, the last and most ambitious in his Emerging Paradigm trilogy. In Saint-Nazaire, France, it's the opening launch of sculptor Haroon Mirza's largest and most ambitious installation to date, Aquarius, the final piece of his Emerging Paradigm trilogy. The gallery's vast space has been moulded into 3 chambers, each designed to alter and refocus your perception.
But I wanted to create different types of acoustic space within this larger space.
No, the light would need to come much lower to get that.
On the one hand, you have an anechoic chamber. So you go in and you lose all sound except for the sound that's been created in that chamber. And then as soon as you leave that space, you become very conscious of the sound in the rest of the installation. You are drawn into that space, sort of passing through this projection area into another dome.
And in that space, you get reverb from the rest of the space coming in, so it's a very focused auditory space. I think a really important thing with sound and space is that it's fundamental in determining your sense of reality and perception and experience.
And then physically in the space, you will at some point see where all the cables come from. This tactic of exposing or laying bare how things are made, he wants us all to, that's part of it, is to sort of make us much more aware of the things around us.
Science is interesting because there's the history of the universe, or the truth of, how everything happened and why it happens, and then there's reality and perception, which is unique to everyone.
Vast infinities of positive and negative numbers.
So my interest in science is not to be scientific, it's to kind of look at it as another belief system, like religion, or also try and figure out or use it to kind of forge my own idea of reality.
Haroon's exploration of belief systems in the Emerging Paradigm trilogy has been the most politically confrontational of his career as he explores the current paradigm.
There's always been a kind of personal politics within his work.
So there was no prejudice, I would say, against women. And there was, at King's College London, a certain prejudice as to where they could drink coffee.
And I think now he's widening it, or finding more of a voice for the issues that he feels close to and wants to explore.
All day long it has continued.
This quietly products.
Aquarius specifically has quite confrontational material in there, and difficult things are being said.
The UK has voted to leave the European Union.
There is something in the air now as well, there is, this massive ideological shift that people on both sides of the fence are kind of feeling, and it's a scary thing, and I think it's a difficult time and moment to be doing anything.
To be honest, at the beginning I was a little bit afraid, so we exchanged some email with Haroon and discussions about politics and all this situation in France and Brittany. But at the end, I'm very happy that they kept it into the piece. I think, I feel, for me, it's very emotional too that he include, in a way, his personal and intimate reality as a British artist.
There's one sequence which is a video game from the 90s called Desert Strike. Players can go around blowing up some Middle Eastern country I played that game. There's a girl selling or promoting her burkini that she's designed and made. And then there's also a sequence, a computer simulation of the Bataclan attacks. There's sorts of logos on there, and they're really promoting their work as computer simulators, 3D simulators. The whole time, there's a computer beating a human being at Go.
I even do like that the screens are floating there, and so you are really like in a sort of an embrace. You are inside. I mean, you are overwhelmed by all these contents and images. They're strong, quite strong and deep, elaborate.
He's used this amazing footage of the first breaking through of the Eurotunnel. And you have someone from the French side shaking hands through the wall with a British worker. And it's this sort of sign of hope and agreement and collaboration. Again, collaboration being a really important thing for Haroon's practice generally. He's putting in these references almost like questions or just sort of notes about what our society is now, what are we doing, the conversations that we're having, which inevitably draws you to think about tolerance, about collaboration, about segregation, separation, and what all these different things mean.
There's definitely emotion in the work. For me, certainly, if I'm going to be honest, maybe 2 or 3 occasions while making this work and seeing it here, I've shed a little tear, so there's definitely an emotional thing, and I don't fully understand what that emotion is and where it's coming from, but I know it's there for me.
I have to see it again and again, because the more you see it, the more you see, you discover all the time new things and new meanings.
Haroon's work is very precise, it's very essential, and in that way it's also sharp.
I don't think he's that interested in art as objects. He's interested in art as experiences and ideas.
I don't know where the drive comes from to do this. Everyone's born an artist. Everyone, when they're very young, they draw and make marks and communicate these strange things through mark making and other forms, right? Weird performances, kind of tantrums, whatever. But then as you get older, you usually, get cured and you kind of stop doing that. So but artists don't, they just carry on.
Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.